ESG reporting, it's a term you hear everywhere these days, right? But for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, it just sounds like a massive compliance headache. Well, today we're going to cut through all that noise. We'll show you what it really means for you, and honestly, why it might just be one of the best things to ever happen to your business. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the rules, let's just step back for a second and ask a bigger question. I mean, beyond the profit and loss statement, what's your company's actual footprint? What's the real story your supply chain tells? And how are you really impacting the lives of your employees and the health of the community around you? These are the questions that are at the very heart of this whole ESG movement.
And let's be crystal clear about something. This isn't just some corporate buzzword or a passing trend. The EU's new Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or CSRD for short, is basically a regulatory earthquake. The whole point is to put sustainability data on the exact same level as your financial reports. It's a huge piece of the EU's very ambitious Green Deal.
So why the big rush? Why this massive push right now? Well, the directive itself gives us 4 key reasons. First, it's about hitting those big climate goals in the Green Deal. But it's also about meeting this huge growing demand from investors. They want reliable, apples to apples data. That data then helps steer money towards sustainable companies. And finally, it's all designed to build a business culture that's more transparent and thinks about the long term, not just the next quarter.
Okay, so to really understand how all this works in practice, you've got to wrap your head around one central concept that pretty much changes everything. It's called double materiality. This is the new lens for looking at your business, and trust me, it's a non-negotiable part of this whole framework.
Think of it like a two-way street. The first lane is what we call financial materiality. This is looking inward. It's asking, how do things like climate change or new regulations create actual financial risks and opportunities for my business? Then the second lane is impact materiality, and this one looks outward. It asks, how do my business operations impact people in the planet? So see, it's not just about what the world does to your bottom line, but what your business does to the world. And you have to report on both.
All right, so let's get practical. Here's our game plan. We're going to walk through the 3 pillars of ESG, the E, the S, and the G, and see exactly what you need to be looking at. And then we'll connect all the dots and see what this revolution really means for a business like yours.
Okay, let's dive right in, starting with the E for environmental. This is all about how your company interacts with the natural world. And the standards get pretty specific here, breaking the environment down into 5 key impact zones. We're talking climate change, obviously. That's both your carbon footprint and how you're getting ready for a changing climate. But it's also about your relationship with water, how you fit into a circular economy instead of a use and toss one, your approach to pollution, and finally, your impact on biodiversity and the delicate ecosystems all around you. Now, inside that big climate change bucket, there is one metric that gets all the headlines: greenhouse gas emissions. And here's where it gets really interesting. The directive gets super granular, requiring you to report your emissions across 3 totally distinct categories, known as scopes. And this is what really redefines what responsibility means. Scope 1, that's the easy stuff, the emissions you directly control, like from your company vehicles. Scope 2 is also straightforward, that's the emissions from the electricity you buy. But Scope 3, man, this is the one that is a total game changer. It forces you to look way beyond your own 4 walls. You have to account for the entire value chain, from the raw materials your suppliers use, all the way to what happens when your customer uses your product. It's a massive, massive expansion of what corporate responsibility means. And that idea of an expanded value chain is actually the perfect bridge to our next pillar, the S for social. This is where we shift gears from your impact on the planet to your impact on people. And again, the scope is just huge. It starts right at home with your own employees. Are you providing safe working conditions, promoting equality and inclusion for everyone, including people with disabilities? But then it ripples outward, demanding you look at the workers in your supply chain, the well-being of the communities where you operate, and even the people who use your products. It's a truly 360-degree view of human impact. And if you want to know just how seriously the directive takes this, just look at this direct quote. It explicitly requires companies to investigate and report on the worst of the worst human rights abuses, like forced and child labor, within their value chains. This isn't about looking the other way anymore. It's about proactive, absolute accountability. All right, that brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, the G for governance. This isn't about what your company does, but how it's managed, governed, and steered from the inside. This really covers the internal machinery of your company. You'll need to report on the role your leadership plays in overseeing all the sustainability stuff. It looks at your internal culture, your business ethics, your fight against corruption, and critically, it examines your external relationships, from any lobbying you might do to how you actually treat your suppliers. And on that last point about suppliers, the directive zooms in on an issue that can be, well, a matter of life or death for small businesses: payment practices, and specifically, the absolute pain of late payments.
See, the regulators who wrote this understood a fundamental truth. A late payment isn't just an accounting headache. It can set off a domino effect of bankruptcy right down the supply chain. So by forcing big companies to be totally transparent about their payment habits, this directive actually hands power back to smaller suppliers. It lets you see who the good players are and demand the fair treatment you deserve.
So, after going through the E, the S, and the G, we finally arrive at the big one. What does all of this actually mean for your business, beyond just another pile of paperwork? So, is this just more red tape? Well, the argument is that it's the complete opposite. It's about seeing reporting not as a cost, but as a real strategic advantage. I mean, think about it. When you have this data, you can attract money from a huge, growing pool of sustainable investors. You can spot risks in your supply chain way before they become disasters. And maybe most importantly, you build this rock-solid reputation with customers and employees who, more and more, want to do business with companies that share their values. Ultimately, this entire shift really boils down to one simple idea. In the 21st century economy, transparency is the new currency. So the question for every business owner out there is no longer if you need to do this, but how you're going to invest in that transparency to build a stronger, more resilient, and more respected business for the future. Thanks for joining me.